LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the December 2nd edition of LiberalViewer Monday Media Mixup. Thanks for joining me and my cat here, Chong. We'll be using the 11 best, most newsworthy clips that I picked out from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States, for what should be a really educational, informative, fair use, media criticism, and political commentary show for you all today. For my main topic, I'm covering what was the big topic on the Sunday shows. The Sunday morning shows all took place before President Biden announced he was pardoning his son Hunter, and that has taken over some of the news coverage. But the big story over the weekend was Trump nominating, or well, not nominating. If you read what he said on True Social, he said that Kash Patel is going to be the next director of the FBI. The problem being that there's already a director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, who was appointed by Trump to a 10-year term. I talked about this last week, how to make the FBI less partisan, supposedly after the J. Edgar Hoover years, they decided to give FBI directors 10-year terms so that they would go longer than one presidential term, so that it wouldn't be as political, every administration coming in and installing their own new FBI director. President Biden kept Trump's FBI director, Christopher Wray, who he appointed in 2017 after he fired the previous FBI director, James Comey. But now supposedly, Trump didn't specifically say he was going to fire Christopher Wray, but he said that Kash Patel, who is an extreme Trump loyalist, who believes in a lot of conspiracy theories and has already put together like an enemies list of journalists and legislators and others who he thinks, people in the Justice Department who he thinks actually need to be prosecuted for things that happened during the Trump administration or at the end of the Trump administration or during the Biden administration. And that makes the FBI even more partisan, in fact, starting to look like a political police force that goes after the enemies of those in power. That's like a secret police. They had that in the Soviet Union. They had it all over the Soviet bloc, and that's not a good thing for the FBI to become. So hopefully there'll be those who oppose this change in the FBI. I mean, it's not like I'm a big fan of the FBI to begin with. I'm not a real fan of police in general, having worked as a public defender for several years before I quit the practice of law. And one good thing I know about Kash Patel is he actually was a public defender, which usually would be something that makes me have hope that he would be a reasonable person. And I actually don't know that much about Kash Patel other than some clips and things that I've seen, not just since he's been nominated, but all the way going back to when he was acting deputy defense secretary, I remember, in the end of the Trump administration. And that'll all be kind of covered in the news summaries. And I'm looking forward to seeing Senate hearings if that actually happens, although they'll have to fire Christopher Wray. Trump will have to fire Christopher Wray, or he'll resign, or anyway. I'll get to all that when I get to the clips. I am going to start with what the little political comedy that I have for you today is kind of some jokes that Jon Karl and Donna Brazile made about the situation when they were discussing it on their panel yesterday over here.
How hard are Democrats going to fight on this one? I don't imagine Patel's going to get many Democrats.
Look, I think the Democrats will have to sort through the debris and figure out which of the shiny objects they want to focus on. And with only, a handful of Republicans possibly thinking about Clause 2, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, the advise and consent rule, this is on Republicans. I mean, Democrats will do what they have to do in terms of, raising questions and so forth. But this is Donald Trump. He has told us who he is. I mean, we know that he wants to shake up the government. We didn't expect an earthquake to destroy the government with some of these picks. But look, Donald Trump is who he is. And he's choosing people that represents his own worst qualities. That's how I see it.
Well, another way to look at it is that he was deeply disappointed by some of his own picks last time when he took the advice, when he put in somebody like Senator Sessions or Bill Barr at Attorney General or Chris Wray at FBI.
Too close to the mainstream.
I mean, he has.
Yeah, too close to the mainstream. That was Donna Brazile's attempt at a joke, and then Jon Karl saying, I don't think he's going to get many Democratic votes. Those were two very minor jokes that I found in the Sunday shows, and that's what I'm using for my political comedy this week. But I'm now going to go to the news summaries, and I'm going to show you longest to shortest from yesterday. And the first one happens to be ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Jon Karl reporting on giving you some background on Kash Patel and the possible appointment, his possible appointment as FBI director, and then also talking about Biden's ceasefire deal in Lebanon in the news summary you can see over here.
Good morning. Welcome to This Week. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. If there was any doubt that President-elect Donald Trump intends to follow through with his promises of radical change and retribution, both here at home and abroad, those doubts have been erased. On the home front, the big move came just last night when Trump announced he intends to make Kash Patel one of his most fervently loyal defenders as the director of the FBI. He'll first have to fire the current director, Chris Wray, who was chosen by Trump back in 2017 and whose term isn't up for more than 2 years. Patel will face an especially contentious confirmation battle. Patel is so controversial that when President Trump talked about making him the deputy FBI director in 2020, then Attorney General Bill Barr said it would happen, quote, over my dead body, according to his memoir, adding, quote, Patel had virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency. The very idea of moving Patel into a role like this showed a shocking detachment from reality. Again, that was Bill Barr objecting to Patel becoming the deputy FBI director. Now Trump has announced his intention to make him the director. Patel has served as both a public defender and a federal prosecutor. He also served on Trump's National Security Council and in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. After the 2020 election, Patel was dispatched to the Pentagon. As I previously reported, he used his post as chief of staff to the acting defense secretary to attempt to chase down one of the most far-fetched election conspiracy theories, that Italian spy satellites were used to flip votes from Trump to Biden. After Trump left the White House, Patel took up the cause of fighting back against anyone and everyone in law enforcement who was investigating Donald Trump. He even wrote a children's book about Trump's legal troubles called Plot Against the King. But it's the book that Patel wrote for adults, Government Gangsters, that gives an idea of what he would attempt to do as the FBI director. He writes that federal law enforcement agencies must be brought to heel by firing the top ranks and prosecuting to the fullest extent of the law anyone who in any way abused their authority for political ends. The FBI has become so thoroughly compromised that it will remain a threat to people unless drastic measures are taken, Patel wrote, adding Democrats, quote, should be very afraid. Trump has also been shaking things up and rattling nerves on the world stage. He began the week by threatening to immediately impose steep tariffs on America's 3 largest trading partners when he takes office on January 20th. That threat prompted a call to Trump from Mexico's president and a trek to Mar-a-Lago by Canada's prime minister. Of course, America has only one president at a time, but with big changes coming, the rest of the world isn't waiting until Trump moves into the White House. The man still in the White House, President Biden, urged Trump to reconsider his latest tariff threats. Biden has had a busy week, too, facing threats from Putin and Russian advances in Ukraine while brokering a ceasefire this week between Hezbollah and Israel. The Biden White House is trying to leverage the Hezbollah deal to get a ceasefire and a hostage release deal with Hamas in Gaza. As Peter Baker put it in the New York Times, quote, this is America in the time of transition. 2 presidents leading the country in 2 different directions. One officially, the other unofficially. One representing the past and present, the other the future. Whipsawed and maybe just a little confused, foreign leaders are left to calculate whether it makes sense to try to get something done with the outgoing leader or brace for the reality of his successor. And we begin with White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
Yeah, and I actually don't have any clips of Jake Sullivan. He didn't really want to comment on Trump nominees, so he avoided answering any questions about Kash Patel, although he was on several of the Sunday morning shows. The next news summary from NBC News Meet the Press, Kristen Welker pretty much covers the same news in, I think, a similar way. I don't know if you get as much detail about Kash Patel, but she also covers the tariffs with Canada and Mexico, the tariff threats from Trump, and something about the Middle East over in this clip.
Good Sunday morning. President-elect Trump proving once again he plans to shake up Washington in his second term, announcing plans to nominate Kash Patel as his next FBI director. Patel is a hardline critic of the Bureau who has called for shutting down the agency's Washington headquarters, firing its leaders, and bringing the nation's law enforcement agencies, quote, to heel.
Do you believe that you can deliver the goods on this in a pretty short order the first couple of months so we can get rolling on prosecutions?
Yes, we got the bench for it, Bannon. And one thing we learned in the Trump administration the first go around is we got to put in all America patriots top to bottom.
The move to pick Patel means that Trump's own hand-picked FBI director, Christopher Wray, would need to be fired or resign since his 10-year term doesn't end until 2027. Meanwhile, the president-elect is threatening harsh tariffs against America's top 3 trading partners, Mexico, Canada, and China. The tariffs may be an opening negotiating position as President-elect Trump looks for leverage to deal with issues of drugs and the border.
It's one of the most beautiful words in the whole world. It's going to make us wealthy again.
The most beautiful word in the entire dictionary of words is the word tariff. I love tariff. I can make anybody do anything through the use of tariffs.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wasted no time traveling to Mar-a-Lago for a dinner on Friday with the president-elect to discuss the matter of Mr. Trump's resort. It comes after Trudeau warned tariffs would hurt consumers in both countries.
Donald Trump, when he makes statements like that, he plans on carrying them out. He would be actually not just harming Canadians who work so well with the United States. He'd actually be raising prices for American citizens as well and hurting American industry and businesses.
Now, already, U.S. CEOs are warning if President-elect Trump does impose new tariffs, they will be passed on to consumers as higher prices. Best Buy CEO saying the vast majority of that tariff will probably be passed on to the consumer. Home Depot's CEO warning there certainly will be an impact. And Walmart's finance chief saying tariffs are going to be inflationary. President Biden also weighing in.
I hope he rethinks it. I think it's a counterproductive thing to do. We're surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and 2 allies, Mexico and Canada. And the last thing we need to do is begin to screw up those relationships.
On Tuesday, President Biden announced a ceasefire deal in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militia the U.S. designates as a terror group. Mr. Biden saying he will renew his push for a ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza.
And just as the Lebanese people deserve a future of security and prosperity, so do the people of Gaza. They too deserve an end to the fighting and displacement. And so now Hamas has a choice to make. Their only way out is to release the hostages, including American citizens, which they hold.
On Saturday, Hamas released a video showing American Idan Alexander, who was taken captive on October 7th.
This video is like he's screaming to everyone, look at me, I'm alive. I'm surviving for 421 days. Please bring me home. I want to come back to my family.
And joining me now is National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
And like I said, no Jake Sullivan, although down in the video description, by the way, you can see not only short summaries of all 11 clips, but you can also see the sources of all my clips, including the NBC News channel on YouTube uploads the entire Meet the Press episode. I think it's on Mondays or late Sundays, so that I put a link to that down in the video description. So if you want to watch Jake Sullivan's interview there, you can. Also CBS News Face the Nation and ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos. They now all have their whole episodes uploaded for free to their YouTube channels. That links I put down in the video description. That news summary, I don't know. You can let me know what you think as to whether it was more important to spend all that time on Kash Patel like they did on ABC, giving you a lot of his background and some of the things he said with clips of that, or in the slightly shorter NBC News Meet the Press news summary, they spent a lot more time on the tariffs, a lot more details about the tariffs and the meetings or the moves that Trump has made with Mexico and Canada, and much more time on what Biden has done in the Middle East and the hostages and the attempt at a ceasefire and all of that. Which news summary was better? I don't know exactly how to judge which of those topics is more important. I mean, for my purposes, I like the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos news summary better because they gave the details about Kash Patel that make you worry that Trump's trying to set up his secret police. I did like the way Kristen Welker phrased what Trump did regarding Kash Patel correctly. She said that he announced he will be the next FBI director, which is all he said on Truth Social. He didn't say anything about firing Christopher Wray. So I don't know, I guess, but you can kind of infer it. But anyway, that was one good thing I definitely liked about the way Kristen Welker did it. But both those news summaries, of course, are a lot better than the Fox News Sunday news summary you're about to see, where I think Shannon Bream pre-recorded a lot of the show. They did this whole thing on the state of artificial intelligence, and then they had some politicians on, but didn't ask them anything, about the Trump transition or Kash Patel, I think they may have recorded it several days ago before Thanksgiving, and I guess it's a way to not have to do all the work on Sunday. But you'll see at the beginning here, Shannon Bream does mention the Kash Patel nomination, not with any of the details about his controversial past that you saw in the previous two news summaries. And then they go to William La Jeunesse doing this report on the state of artificial intelligence. So they could take part of the Sunday off, I guess, over in this clip.
From Fox News in Washington, here's a quick look at some of your top headlines this morning. President-elect Trump nominating longtime ally Kash Patel to serve as the next FBI director, set to replace current head Christopher Wray, who would have to resign or be fired. Patel served in a number of roles in the first Trump administration, including Deputy Director of National Intelligence. Syrian rebels continuing their stunning advance into government-held territory after taking control of Aleppo, the country's largest city. The offensive marking the biggest challenge to President Bashar al-Assad's regime in years. And a major winter storm blanketing parts of western New York and the Midwest with up to 40 inches of snow, maybe more, raising serious concerns for many ahead of the busiest travel day of the year. And adding insult to injury, an ugly brawl breaking out after Michigan's upset win over Ohio State yesterday. Tempers flaring when a Wolverine player tried to plant the Michigan school flag in the middle of Ohio State's field. Now to the focus of our special today, the state of artificial intelligence. The powerful, life-changing innovation transforming just about every part of society. Over the next hour, we'll explore how AI came to be, its unrivaled capabilities and benefits, and the very real risks it poses. In just a moment, Senator Mark Warner joins us on the debate lawmakers are having about how to create guardrails without hindering innovation. But first, we go to William La Jeunesse for a closer look at the progression of this technology and where it might go next.
Hey, co-pilot.
Good morning. What can I do for you?
Voice or text, artificial intelligence is about to change your life, says Microsoft's Youssef Mehdi.
Draft an email to my daughter's school PTA. Dear PTA members, I hope this email finds you well.
So how does it know to come up with these ideas?
It runs hundreds of millions of evaluations in millisecond time.
Whether it's a conversation or generating images.
So I'm going to say wheat fields in a valley at sunrise.
AI is revolutionary, like the PC, internet, cloud, and mobile phone.
As an electronic brain.
Machine learning began in the 50s. By 97, a computer beat chess champion Garry Kasparov.
Say hi, Abo.
Later came a robotic dog and humanoid.
My name is Watson.
Watson won Jeopardy!
Hey, Siri.
Apple introduced Siri.
Alexa, play classical music.
Amazon gave us Alexa. By 2022, OpenAI's ChatGPT outperformed many PhDs.
There's more information available through the internet than any human being in the history of the world has ever individually consumed.
Access to that gives AI a superhuman ability to sort images or generate new ones. Is this a AI-generated image?
This image did not exist prior to my asking for it.
The future is not science fiction or fantasy. It's not even the future. It's here and now.
Many on Capitol Hill fear AI competitors are moving too fast and favor a new federal agency to audit systems before they go public.
The control of this technology by just a handful of companies and governments is a huge, huge problem.
Some states are stepping in to prohibit cloning voices or faces.
There are a lot of deepfakes out there. There's not a lot of disclosure. There's not a lot of labeling.
While the industry worries that regulation will stifle innovation, others fear the future if we don't. Shannon?
William La Jeunesse reporting. Thank you, William. Joining me now, Virginia Senator Mark Warner.
And somehow I don't think that interview was live or even done during the weekend, or there's no evidence of it from the interview. But my main criticism was not that William La Jeunesse report on AI, which was, I don't know, kind of mediocre, but not terrible and not really full of partisan political bias like most of Fox News. But they talked about Kash Patel, just saying he was like a Trump ally who worked at the Defense Department. Oh, by the way, I think earlier I said he was Deputy Defense Secretary, but he was Chief of Staff to the acting Defense Secretary was what his actual position was at the end of the Trump administration. And they don't really talk about the controversy with Kash Patel. The one thing I noticed watching at that time was they spend more time on the controversy at the Michigan-Ohio State football game than they spent on the controversy about Kash Patel taking over the FBI. But anyway, that is the Fox News Sunday so-called news summary that doesn't really fit with any of the others. Now I'll move on to a news summary from CBS News Face the Nation, where they have a Fox News alum, Major Garrett, who used to be on Fox News, one of their supposedly straight news reporters, and I think he still has a little bit of the Fox News in him, and I'll talk about that when I show his Newsmaker clip later, when he's talking to Senator Ted Cruz. That's the final Newsmaker clip. But here's Major Garrett covering the, he goes over to Weijia Jiang reporting on the Trump transition and the Kash Patel nomination, if that's even what you call Trump saying he's going to be the next director, without saying how the current director, whose term ends in 2007, is going to end his term. But then he starts off with this weird thing, about Biden's foreign policy and Congress tackling unfinished business and retailers slashing prices without any details at all. And then over to Weijia Jiang in this clip.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Face the Nation. As we put the final touches on this long holiday weekend and the leftovers that go with it, the economy and border loom large as the nation and world anticipate a second Trump administration. Meanwhile, President Biden tries to secure last-minute diplomatic breakthroughs, Congress tackles unfinished business, and retailers slash prices to launch the holiday shopping season in this final month of 2024. But we begin this morning with the latest on the Trump transition with senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang.
Kash Patel's pending nomination for FBI director embodies President-elect Trump's desire to disrupt federal law enforcement agencies.
I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state.
Patel rose to prominence during Trump's first term when he helped lead the charge against the DOJ's investigation of Russia meddling in the 2016 election.
And Kash Patel is here, one of our real warriors.
The current FBI director, Christopher Wray, who was appointed by Trump in 2017, has 3 years left on a 10-year term. He would have to resign or be fired to create an opening. The FBI says Director Wray's focus remains on the men and women of the FBI, the people we do the work with, and the people we do the work for. Trump also announced he has selected son-in-law Jared Kushner's father, Charles Kushner, to serve as the next U.S. ambassador to France. Kushner was pardoned by Trump in 2020 after serving time in prison as part of a 2-year sentence on federal criminal charges. As Trump fills his administration, he's also meeting with world leaders.
It was an excellent conversation.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had dinner with Trump at Mar-a-Lago on Friday, then posted, "I look forward to the work we can do together again." But Trump's threat to impose a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico remains, unless, he says, the countries take action to stop migrants and drugs from entering the U.S. border. Both North American allies say they are preparing retaliatory tariffs on U.S. exports. Now, Trump has issued a new threat against a group of 9 countries, including Brazil, Russia, and China. He says if they try to shy away from the U.S. dollar on international trade, he would impose a 100% tariff on their goods. Major?
Weijia Jiang in Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you. We turn now to Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz.
And like I said, I am going to show you a clip of that Ted Cruz interview. I have Cheech here. Earlier when I started the program, I had Chong. This is his brother, Cheech, and he's a lot easier to hold on to. He doesn't really mind just sort of lying here the whole time. But I want to finish up the news summaries. I thought the Weijia Jiang report was good. She was also the only one who talked about Trump threatening to put a tariff on the BRICS countries, you know, the ones that are threatening to leave the dollar. And I just didn't really like Major Garrett. Maybe I just have a Fox News hangover from him, but I'll talk about that more when I get to the Ted Cruz clip. Let me finish up the news summaries here and put down Cheech with the brief news summary, CNN State of the Union. This week they had in Kasie Hunt. I remember Kasie Hunt from when she used to be on Morning Joe a couple years ago, and I've always been a fan of Kasie Hunt, and I think she did a good job this week, starting off the program over here.
Hello, I'm Kasie Hunt in for Jake Tapper and Dana Bash in Washington, where the State of our Union is watching a new battle brewing. President-elect Donald Trump is closing out his Thanksgiving weekend by setting up another major political fight. He wants longtime loyalist and partisan firebrand Kash Patel to lead the FBI. It's a move that would require firing the current director, Christopher Wray, who Trump appointed after firing his first FBI director in 2017. Patel is a highly divisive figure. He's accused the so-called deep state of targeting Trump and proposed a, quote, comprehensive house cleaning, end quote, of the Justice Department, saying that under Trump, it would go after members of the media. In his memoir, former Attorney General Bill Barr said he had tried to block a move to install Patel as deputy FBI director during Trump's first term. Barr said that he'd allow it, quote, over my dead body. And multiple sources familiar with the Trump transition process had previously told CNN that Patel's rise is deeply concerning. It's not clear that Patel could be confirmed by the Senate, but his pick is another sign that Trump plans to follow through on his promises to disrupt Washington. Joining me now is White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
So actually, I thought that was pretty good for the length. There's a lot more information about Kash Patel in that like 80 seconds there than you saw from Fox News Sunday and Shannon Bream. Kasie Hunt mentioned Trump would have to fire Christopher Wray, who got the job when Trump fired James Comey. I think that was the only mention of James Comey getting fired. I wish somebody had done a little bit more explication about how FBI directors have 10-year terms to prevent the FBI from becoming a partisan political tool, and Trump has now broken that twice because he wants to move the FBI to be his personal secret police, apparently, or his federal, the Trump police force for the nation. I don't know. But based on his pick of Kash Patel, that's what he wants the head of the FBI to do for him. Now I'm going to get to the newsmaker clips but first, actually, since Fox News Sunday, as I said, they only talked to their newsmakers about the state of artificial intelligence, and it looked like they were even pre-recorded before the weekend. The only place I could get any discussion of the Kash Patel nomination, if you want to call it, was from their panel discussion. And first, you'll see that the person on the right talking, Katie Pavlich, says like multiple false things. First she claimed, because Shannon Bream asks the question about Kash Patel and his controversies by using a clip of former acting FBI director Andrew McCabe, who was fired by the Trump administration like hours before he was going to retire on his 50th birthday with a vested pension. And Katie Pavlich mentions this and says he was fired for leaking information to the press, which isn't. The Inspector General report on that just said that he wasn't completely candid about authorizing release of information, and that's not why he was fired. He was fired as a retaliatory move by the Trump administration so he couldn't get his pension, and he sued, and he got back pay, and he got his pension. He got it was a settlement, so I guess you can't say he won the case, but he settled the case on very favorable terms, which Katie Pavlich, that never comes up when Katie Pavlich is talking, and then they have their person on the left, supposedly Richard Fowler, of course, doesn't clean that up. Shannon Bream, the host, doesn't clean that up, although I'm sure she must be aware about the case it was reported at the time, so that was left out of this whole Fox News discussion. And then she also says, and Katie Pavlich comes up with this thing that nobody's ever heard of, that Christopher Wray said he was gonna leave at the end of the Biden administration, which I looked everywhere, could not find anything about that. And you've just seen all these other news summaries, including the Fox News Sunday news summary, saying that Christopher Wray would have to resign or be fired for Kash Patel to become FBI director. But anyway, I think I pre-criticized this clip enough, and I'll talk about it with you a little more after we watch it together over here.
Potential Trump nominations. Overnight, we've gotten word that he has chosen Kash Patel to lead the FBI. Now, that means Christopher Wray either resigns or is fired. But former acting FBI director Andrew McCabe has this to say about the Patel choice.
It's a terrible development for the men and women of the FBI, and also for the nation that depends on a highly functioning, professional, independent Federal Bureau of Investigation. The fact that Kash Patel is profoundly unqualified for this job is not even a matter for debate.
Well, he'll have to talk about that as he goes through a Senate confirmation process.
First, let's talk about former acting FBI director Andrew McCabe. He was fired. He was fired for leaking information to the media. The Inspector General of the Department of Justice referred him for criminal prosecution. He is one of the top people who has destroyed the reputation of the FBI over the past 10 years. There's been no accountability for him, and he calls the current nominee unqualified. Well, let's take a look at Kash Patel's qualifications. He was the Deputy Director of National Intelligence, overseeing 17 intelligence agencies. He was in the Department of Justice under Barack Obama, prosecuting ISIS. During the Trump administration, the first time around, he was in charge of taking out ISIS cells in the Middle East, what the administration did successfully. So he has the domestic policy, or the foreign policy, down. On the domestic side, He's the one who wrote that memo exposing the fact that the FBI was illegally wiretapping, issuing FISA warrants against American citizens who worked for a political campaign, the first Trump campaign. He has gone through and exposed all of the civil liberty violations the FBI has engaged in with, again, no accountability over the past really 10 years. And this started at the IRS under Barack Obama, by the way. It wasn't just in the FBI. So people like Andrew McCabe are trying to claim this is some kind of retribution. They're conflating retribution with accountability. And Kash Patel not only has the experience on foreign policy, but also on domestic policy as well, with all of his work rooting out this corruption used for political purposes against political enemies inside the intelligence communities and on Capitol Hill.
Richard, I sense a different take coming from you over here.
Yes and no. Look, let's be very clear. I think for decades, we've seen problems with the FBI. Let's go back to them wiretapping Martin Luther King, to the fact that we've seen them wiretap American citizens today, whether it be the cases that Katie mentioned or folks who are protesting for Black Lives to Matter, right? We've seen the FBI engage in behavior that most Americans, no matter what side of the political aisle you sit on, raise an eyebrow to. Now, the question becomes, is Kash Patel the right person to clean this up in a world in which we've heard him say things like the 2020 election results weren't true, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Once again, it's not my job or Katie's job to make this determination. This will be the job of the United States Senate, understanding that for many, many years, the FBI director's term has been 10 years because the whole deal is the political office, or better yet, the non-political office of the FBI should be something that's apolitical. And the question now but the past two directors will both be appointed by Trump will have many Americans questioning, many senators questioning, is the FBI now apolitical or not? Aren't they apolitical? And that's the question the Senate will have to say.
Apolitical.
Well, and listen, President Trump chose Christopher Wray, but now he's going to have to go if Kash Patel's going to take this job. He is, 7 years into a 10-year term that you would traditionally see. Do you guys think Wray resigns or Trump fires him?
I believe Wray has already said that he is going to be leaving at the end of the Biden administration. So if he does, Trump will be able to potentially get his guy. If he does not leave, maybe there's potential President Trump can fire him and then appoint Kash Patel as the acting director for 200 days. Then they'll have to find someone else.
Well, there are many Senate battles to come.
She's already figuring out a recess appointment, and Katie Pavlich gave so much misinformation there. No cleanup by anyone. And anyway, I pretty much pre-criticized that clip, but I'm now going to show you the 4 newsmaker clips, 4 different Republicans. 3 of them are in the Senate, and we'll actually have to vote on Kash Patel if it turns out that he is nominated as FBI director. The first one here is Senator Mike Rounds over on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Jonathan Karl asked him to react to the nomination, and the one interesting thing that he talks about is that he actually thinks Christopher Wray shouldn't be fired, or that he's doing a good job, but I'll talk about that a little more after we watch that clip together over here.
The news about Kash Patel. Were you surprised that Donald Trump said that he wants to make him the director of the FBI? Does it concern you?
Well, every president has the opportunity to decide who he wants to offer a nomination for. So all of the nominations coming through, the president has the right to do. It doesn't surprise me that he will pick people that he believes are very loyal to himself. And that's been a part of the process. Every president wants people that are loyal to themselves. But I'll also share with you that Chris Wray, who the president nominated the first time around, and I think the president picked a very good man to be the director of the FBI when he did that in his first term. When we meet with him behind closed doors, I've had no objections to the way that he's handled himself. And so I don't have any complaints about the way that he's done his job right now. And once again, the president has the right to make nominations, but normally these are for a 10-year term. We'll see what his process is and whether he actually makes that nomination. And then if he does, just as with anybody who is nominated for one of these positions, once they've been nominated by the president, then the president gets the benefit of the doubt on the nomination, but we still go through a process, and that process includes advice and consent, which for the Senate means advice or consent sometimes.
Yeah, Wray was confirmed for a 10-year term, as you pointed out. You just said you have confidence in him. Is it a mistake to fire him? I mean, why is Trump determined to fire the FBI director, let alone one that he nominated in the first place.
Look, the one thing that we've learned is we don't speak for the president-elect. We simply respond when we're asked questions about what we're going to do. The message, and one that I feel very strongly about, is that there is a constitutional separation. The Founding Fathers did that for a reason. We accept that the president should have the people that he wants in his cabinet and on his team. Every president wants that. We give them the benefit of the doubt. I did that when Biden came into office. I did that before when President Trump was elected. I looked the same way at it when President Obama made nominations. I will do that again, and I think the vast majority of the members of the Senate will do the same thing. They will give a benefit of the doubt to the president with any one of his nominees, but then we have a constitutional role to play in that we provide advice and consent. And once again, that can be sometimes advice, sometimes it is consent. But that's the process. The process has worked, and I expect the process to continue on. And look, there'll be open hearings. There'll be an opportunity for these individuals, all of his nominees, to come before the members of the Senate. Most of the times we meet with them privately beforehand. And then once that is completed, we'll go before committees. The committees will have an opportunity to question them. The vast majority of those will be in public. Some will be behind closed doors, but the vast majority of them will be in public. We'll get an opportunity, and the American people will have an opportunity to see both the questions that are raised and the answers that these nominees respond with. And then we'll move forward.
All right, let me ask you about the other thing. One of the other things Donald Trump did this week, that was the threat to impose steep tariffs.
So yeah, then Jonathan Karl moves on to tariffs, which I showed because there was no follow-up on that, and the senator didn't really answer the question about firing Christopher Wray. In fact, the question itself, I don't think was pointed enough. Like I said before, I don't think there's been enough explication in any of these shows about the whole reason that the FBI director has a 10-year term is to attempt to stop the FBI from being politicized. I mean, it's always under the Attorney General, who's appointed by the president. The Attorney General is the boss of the director of the FBI also, but Trump has broken that rule twice now, or at least he broke it once and now is apparently threatening to break it again. And the only conclusion from that is he wants to politicize the FBI and the Justice Department, obviously, from his picks there. And it's something that should be more a point of focused discussion and questioning, that Trump may be in the process of trying to create his own secret police. That's, one of the hallmarks of an authoritarian state, and politicizing the federal police force and the federal Department of Justice. It's something that Trump has promised to do, and people warned he was going to do, and it looks like he's going to do it, and I guess we're going to suffer the consequences. But now I'm going to show you a little bit better fact-checking of a Republican. This is Kasie Hunt over on CNN doing some fact-checking of a few things that Representative Mike Lawler says about the Kash Patel nomination and the Biden Justice Department, and mentions Hunter Biden here. This is, like I said, Sunday morning before the Hunter Biden pardon was announced, and I'll talk about all of that a little more after you watch Kasie Hunt fact-check Representative Mike Lawler of New York over here.
I want to start with the news out of Mar-a-Lago overnight, and that was Donald Trump's announcement that he intends to nominate Kash Patel to be his FBI director. Do you have any reservations about Kash Patel serving in that role?
No. Donald Trump campaigned on reforming the FBI and the Department of Justice, so I don't know why any of this is, frankly, surprising to people. President Trump has nominated in Kash Patel, someone who served as chief of staff at the Department of Defense, someone who served as deputy director of the NSI, someone who served as a senior staffer on the House Intelligence Committee. He was a federal prosecutor under the Obama administration, and so certainly has requisite experience for this role. I think there's no question President Trump made very clear that the Department of Justice and the FBI would be reformed if he was elected to a second term. And I think, obviously, with the selection of Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, that's exactly what he's going to do.
Do you have any reservations about Patel potentially going after President-elect Trump's political enemies? Patel has a list of names in his book.
Look, I don't think the American people are interested in a revenge tour. But obviously, if people did wrong in their official capacities, then that's something they should be concerned about. But if they didn't do anything wrong, if they upheld the law, then there shouldn't be a problem. The objective here, obviously, is to reform the Department of Justice and the FBI and get it back to its mission of going after criminals. You know, growing up in New York, the FBI in the aftermath of 9/11 was focused on going after terrorism. And obviously, in recent years, we've seen the FBI and the Department of Justice weaponized in a way that it has become completely political. That's not good for the American people. It's not good for our system of justice. The lack of confidence that Americans have in the Department of Justice and the FBI is terrible. And so obviously we want a system that is reformed, that works for the American people, and that prosecutes criminals. And that should be the objective and the goal of every American. And obviously that's what my hope is as the Department of Justice moves forward under Pam Bondi and the FBI under Kash Patel.
If the goal is partisan neutrality, is Patel not a partisan? It's also maybe worth noting, I mean, Christopher Wray was appointed by then President Donald Trump.
Right, and Christopher Wray's FBI then went and investigated Donald Trump. These charges have since been dropped by the special prosecutor. But again, Kasie, these issues have been litigated in this election that we just had. Donald Trump talked about this for 2 years, so I don't know why anybody is surprised. The American people voted for Donald Trump overwhelmingly, despite him campaigning on these issues. So, look, I'm not concerned about partisanship here. I think we've seen a DOJ and an FBI that have been weaponized. You look at the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James. She literally campaigned on prosecuting Donald Trump. I didn't see many in the media objecting to that. The fact is that our system of justice needs to be depoliticized. And unfortunately, under the Biden administration, we have seen it weaponized, and it's wrong.
All right, sir. We should note those charges were, of course, dropped because Donald Trump was elected to become our next president. But, sir, I know you also were eager to talk about the situation in the Middle East. And
So, yeah, one little quibble I have with the fact check there, Kasie Hunt, is like those charges were dropped because of him being elected president and there being a DOJ policy you can't prosecute a sitting president. But she didn't really push back on, she said, Trump appointed Christopher Wray, and Mike Lawler responded by saying that, well, but then he investigated Trump, but no fact check. Well, he investigated Trump because Trump was criming, right? He was like committing crimes. He got indicted by grand juries. He wasn't investigated for nothing, certainly not at the federal level. And he actually got convicted of 34 felonies in New York for falsifying business records to cover up some other crime, which was like a election crime. I covered that extensively when it happened, and who knows what's going to happen with that. But that was kind of the best of the fact-checking anyway. Kristen Welker has Senator Bill Hagerty on for an interview, asks him about Kash Patel and lets him dig into the politicized FBI without really, without asking like the really good question about, well, Kash Patel is kind of divisive. Well, whatever. Let's compare the cross-examinations here. Bill Hagerty and Mike Lawler and Mike Rounds. And I'll talk about that a little more after we watch that clip together.
Let's start right there. I want to get your reaction. President-elect Trump essentially making this move that would lead to the firing of his own handpicked FBI director, whose term doesn't come to an end until 2027, replacing him with Kash Patel, of course, who served multiple different roles in the first Trump administration. How will you vote on his nomination, and do you think he has enough votes to pass?
I've encouraged President Trump to bring Kash Patel to the table for precisely this reason. Unlike Jake, I understand his resistance to talk about Kash, but I'm more than happy to talk about him. He represents the type of change that we need to see in the FBI. If you think about the failures of background checks that have taken place, how could we have somebody like Colin Kahl who tweeted out classified information? I went to the FBI myself. They ignored me. Basically, he was confirmed on a party line vote in the U.S. Senate with Kamala Harris breaking the tie to put this person that should not even have a security clearance in the third most powerful position at DOD. You've got Rob Malley. I don't know how he cleared an FBI check. He's now under investigation. His ties to the Iranian influence regime that worked with him and for him. Ariane Talatabi, who is still at the DOD, should never clear an FBI background check. This entire agency needs to be cleaned out. It's not doing its job. And if you look at what happened, the politicization that took place back in 2016, when senior leaders of the FBI collaborated and conspired to try to keep President Trump out of office. And then when he came into office, they put together this fake Russiagate investigation that hindered the Trump administration at the first several years. Look at 2020. Look at what happened there with the fake Hunter Biden story that the FBI leadership worked together with big tech to censor the Hunter Biden laptop that allowed President Biden to basically fool the American public and come into office. There are serious problems at the FBI. The American public knows it. They expect to see sweeping change, and Kash Patel is just the type of person to do it.
Okay, so I hear you saying you are a yes, and yet a lot of folks have raised questions about whether Patel is qualified. President-elect Trump floated the idea of Patel as his deputy FBI director at the end of his first term. His attorney general at the time, Bill Barr, rejected the idea, later writing this in his memoir, quote, Patel had virtually no experience that would qualify him to serve at the highest level of the world's preeminent law enforcement agency. Senator, how seriously do you take Barr's warnings?
Listen, I think you should have the Biden administration look at itself. What is the qualification of Tony Blinken to become Secretary of State? Well, he organized 51 so-called intelligence experts to put together a fake letter saying that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. That must have qualified him to be Secretary of State. President Trump is entitled to name his appointees. That is exactly what he's doing, and I'm going to support this appointment. Kash has worked in national security. He's worked at the Department of Justice. And he's somebody that has been willing to uncover the wrongs at the FBI. He's the one that uncovered for the American public what happened with Russiagate. He's the one that can see through the fix here.
So, Senator, you are disregarding what Bill Barr, the former attorney general under Donald Trump, is saying, his warnings that he just doesn't have the experience.
I'm saying there are people that are serving in the current administration that are woefully inexperienced. I think Kash does have relevant experience, particularly when it comes to the mandate the American public has signed of turning these agencies around that have become completely corrupted. Kash has pointed it out. He's probably the best at uncovering what's happened at the FBI, and I look forward to seeing him taking it apart.
All right. Well, let's talk about one of the other big headlines this week, tariffs.
So, yeah, then Kristen Welker moves to tariffs. Not much fact-checking on the whole Russiagate thing that Bill Hagerty was trying to come. He said that the FBI conspired before the 2016 election to keep Trump out of office with the, what did he call it, the Russia hoax, or I can't remember. But that, I mean, if anything, James Comey kept Hillary Clinton out of the White House the way he reopened the what about her emails case right before the election. They never even said anything about the Russia collusion that was going on. And Russia did try to influence the election in 2016 to help Trump, and the Trump campaign was willing to take that help. There was no criminal charges for that, but that doesn't mean there was no collusion. There was, well, I've gone over that many times. I'm not going to go off on that tangent, but there should have been some fact-checking on that. The way Kasie Hunt did it, Kristen Welker did not. And then there's really no fact-checking either from a former Fox News supposedly straight news anchor or reporter Major Garrett talking to Senator Ted Cruz in the final newsmaker clip I'm going to show you over here.
Kash Patel, suggested by President Trump as the new leader of the FBI. How enthusiastic are you about that?
Listen, I think Kash Patel is a very strong nominee. I think the entire slate of cabinet nominees President Trump has put forward is very strong. I believe every one of these cabinet nominees is going to be confirmed by the Senate. I think Kash Patel is going to be confirmed by the Senate. You look at his background. He has a serious professional background. He was a prosecutor. He was a public defender. He was a senior intelligence staffer on Capitol Hill. He was a senior intelligence staffer in the White House. He was the chief of staff of the Department of Defense. He was the deputy director of national intelligence. And I got to say, all of the weeping and gnashing of teeth, all of the people pulling their hair out are exactly the people who are dismayed about having a real reformer come into the FBI and clean out the corrupted partisans who sadly have burrowed into senior career positions at the FBI. The FBI and the Department of Justice are two institutions incredibly important to the rule of law in the United States. I revere both. And one of the most tragic consequences of 4 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is both DOJ and the FBI have been politicized and weaponized. And I think Kash Patel is a very strong nominee to take on the partisan corruption in the FBI.
As you know, Senator, there isn't a vacancy at the top of the FBI. What should become of Christopher Wray, appointed by President Trump?
Well, I think he'll make a choice. I think either he will resign or President Trump will fire him. But it's no secret to anybody, including Chris Wray, that he is not going to continue to serve as the head of the FBI under Donald Trump. Listen, if you look at James Comey and Chris Wray, there has never been a period in our nation's history where the FBI has suffered a greater loss of respect, where more Americans doubt the fundamental integrity of the FBI. And it's because James Comey and Chris Wray presided over allowing the FBI to become a partisan cudgel, to be used to target parents at school board meetings, to be used to target people who chose not to take the COVID vaccine, to be used to target President Trump, and to target the political opponents of Joe Biden in the White House. It is tragic. That is not what the FBI is for. That is not what the DOJ is for. And I got to say, Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, I think together are a very strong slate of nominees to go and restore integrity to both institutions.
How do you place that up against the prosecutions of Bob Menendez, a congressman, a Democrat from Texas, Hunter Biden? Are those political prosecutions as well or not?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. Bob Menendez was literally caught with gold bars and a stack of cash with his fingerprints taking bribes, and it's why Bob Menendez is not my colleague anymore. At that point, the evidence was overwhelming. Look, Major, I wrote an entire book entitled Justice Corrupted, How the Left Has Weaponized the Legal System, and it broke down. It started, sadly, under Barack Obama, where he began using the federal government to target his political opponents. The book details how many of those partisans then burrowed in to senior career positions during the Trump administration. They waged war against President Trump during his first term. And now under Joe Biden, they have been open and brazen, and I think it has done unbelievable damage to the integrity of the Department of Justice and the FBI. I think Merrick Garland will go down in history as the most partisan attorney general our nation has ever seen. And I got to say, I hear regularly from prosecutors, from FBI agents who are deeply dismayed about the institution they've devoted a lifetime working for. Because, listen, I don't want a Republican Department of Justice. I don't want a Democrat Department of Justice. I want a Department of Justice and an FBI that enforces the law regardless of party. And sadly, we haven't seen that these last 4 years.
What can you tell us about the 3 Americans released by China who were in San Antonio?
So, yeah, no follow-up by Major Garrett. There was like one slight cross-examination about whether the prosecution of Bob Menendez and Hunter Biden meant that the Biden Justice Department wasn't partisan, but there's nothing about no pushback on the idea that under James Comey and Christopher Wray, the FBI has had the worst reputation ever. What about like J. Edgar Hoover and COINTELPRO and the bugging of Martin Luther King Jr. and there was a lot of fact checking or cross examination that could have been done there by Major Garrett, was not done. Just let Ted Cruz get away with all those partisan Republican talking points like targeting targeting parents who go to school board meetings. Well, there was like this one memo written in, I think, one FBI office, maybe in Virginia, that was like immediately disavowed by Christopher Wray and the whole FBI but they're still playing on that one thing. There's been a talking point now for years and years, and no. Anyway, that was the last newsmaker clip. I do have my bonus Cheech and Chong the kittens clip I'm going to show you in just a minute. Although you saw Chong at the beginning and Cheech in the middle of the show already, but I have a clip I recorded. I have 7 more episodes till my final Monday Media Mix-Up on January 20th, which is going to be Trump's Inauguration Day on Monday, and also Martin Luther King Day. That's going to be kind of crazy for both those things to happen at the same time. Who knows what's going to happen. Hopefully the power will be on and I'll be able to do my final Monday Media Mix-Up. After that, I will still be making videos, but just not a regularly scheduled live stream anymore. This week I have dental surgery scheduled, so hopefully I'll be recovered enough so that I can talk normally next Monday. Maybe my commentary will be much briefer next Monday if my mouth isn't working that great, but I'll do the best I can. I'll see you next Monday, but before I finish, I tried to get a clip of Cheech and Chong the kittens playing with this spinning toy, and they didn't really play with it, but I kind of liked the ways their eyes were glowing, so I'm going to show you that clip. Oh, thanks, Lulu Girl, for the super chat contribution. It's good to see you back at the live stream for the final 8 one of the final 8 episodes here. I appreciate that, and good luck wishes. I appreciate all of you who show up and watch my clips with me and listen to the commentary and criticism. I don't think I'll have any other reason to upload a video this week. I don't even know if I'll be able to talk very well, so hopefully it'll be back to pretty much normal by next Monday. That's what I'm hoping. Until then, I guess I'll be seeing all of you around the internet.